Now, let's take you to this live press conference taking place as we speak. The Gupta extradition request has been denied by a court in the UAE, and Justice Minister Ronald Lamola is speaking right now.
Complied, and that's why we are bemused by this judgment that cites technicalities. And we find it shocking that such a technicality has been cited when all these efforts have been put by us. And that's why I went through the timelines of what we did and what happened between our central authority and the central authorities of the UAE. But as I read Article 17 of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, even if that was the case, the authority, even if they had technicality problems, the authorities in the UAE, in terms of this Article 17, should have still required clarity from our authorities that there is this issue, for example, of the warrant that was cancelled, which could have been easily explained by the NDPP as she's explaining now to them, because the correct warrant is still there. They could have been able to get clarity. So Article 17 of the United Nations Convention, maybe I should read it again. It says that before refusing extradition, the requested state party shall, where appropriate, consult with the requesting state party to provide it with ample opportunity to present its opinions and to provide information relevant to its allegation. So there is no basis whatsoever for this technical judgment that we have been given. So from our side, we are still very clear that we complied with the treaty and its obligations. And hence, we will continue to engage with our counterparts so that we also preserve the integrity of our bilateral relations as the two central authorities. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Minister. We now have a new round of hands that we will take. We will start with Ms. Sophie Mokoena from the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Then we will move to Ms. MC Ferreira from the Mail and Guardian. Then we'll move to Vickers Berger. I think it's De Beeld. Then we will move to Suresh Mishra from World News. And then we'll go to Angelo Koppler from CGTN. In that order, colleagues, thank you very much. May I just add, sorry, we'll also then take a question from Newsroom Africa as well. Thank you. SABC.
Okay. Good morning, Minister. It is Aldrin St-Pierre here. Just a quick question on, I think, just picking up on what Valdio was asking a bit earlier on, and that is there any evidence that the Gupta brothers were ever arrested? Is there any evidence that the Gupta brothers were ever arrested? And then the issue around the use of the South African passport, do we know whether they've used a South African passport and if they are in the CAR? And then the other one is on the Vanuatu citizenship. Do we have any diplomatic relations between the between Vanuatu as a country? And the final one, Minister, is this the first time after the report came out that the ministry or the government was informed of a development relating to the Gupta brothers? Thank you.
Crispin, are you still there?
Yes, we seem to have lost Crispin, have we? It's a bit quiet.
Yeah, I think so. We'll just have to wait a bit for him to come back.
The next question can be whilst we're waiting for him.
Can I proceed? Yes, Minister, I think let's take the next question. Yeah.
Sorry, am I audible? This is MC from the Mail and Guardian.
Yeah, yes, MC, you are audible. Please proceed.
Could I ask either the Minister or Advocate Mashabane whether we were afforded the courtesy of an English version of the note verbal, or were we reduced to translating that? And then this is perhaps a bit hypothetical, but if we were to appeal and we were again denied, do we have any other legal recourse?
Thank you very much, MC. Let's take the next question in that order that Chris had created. I think it was Angelo. Angelo seemed to have been kicked out as well. Valdi Carelsa, can you hear us? Can you ask the next question?
Yes, I will. Thanks very much. I'm wondering, as a follow-up, it's just how can we successfully prosecute state capture cases which depend on the evidence of the Gupta brothers when we can't even get them here, Minister?
Thank you very much. The next one,
I'm back.
is it? Oh, who's back? Is that Chris?
No, Angelo.
Oh, Angela, can we take you, please?
Right. Question for the Minister. How confident are you that you're going to get a different outcome should you appeal the case that's currently on the table?
Okay, thank you very much, Angelo. Can we take Newsroom Africa?
All right, Minister, thank you very much. My name is Tolim Gambi. First question, is there even an extradition treaty to speak of between ourselves and the UAE if this is the manner in which they are going to treat our country? That's question number one. Number two, these people are on an Interpol red list. What does that mean in practice? Can they be picked up anywhere, given that they are clearly now making rounds around the world seeking asylum? And then the final question, it's got to do with South Africans' confidence in our country's criminal justice system, Minister Lamola. Thabo Bester, we have no clue where he is right now. And then there is this mess that we're now thrown into. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleague. Can we take Renee from Bloomberg News? Then we can then provide answers and see if we left colleagues out of this round.
Please don't forget about me. Vickers from Netwerk 24.
Excuse me?
Sorry, it's Vickers from Netwerk 24. I just said don't forget about me, but I'll ask my question after Newsroom Africa.
Oh, okay, maybe just ask the question now. Use the opportunity. We have just from Newsroom Africa. Just ask the question.
Okay. Oh, sorry. No. So, Minister, you would agree that events like these, they do lead to assumptions regarding the fight against state capture and corruption, whether right or wrong. So, keeping that in mind, are we winning the fight against corruption and state capture? That's my question. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Renee from Bloomberg, do you still have a question? You can just ask, then we close with you.
Hi there. Yes, I do. Thank you. My question is still the earlier question. Is it true about them applying for asylum in the DAC or CAR? And is it true that they've been in Switzerland?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll come back. And DPP, would you start and deal with some of the areas that you're comfortable with?
Okay, sure. Let me look at, perhaps I'll just take one of the The issues relating to the sorry, just give me a moment. I've been writing fast here. How can we successfully prosecute these cases when it depends on the evidence of the Guptas? Just to clarify that the evidence of the Guptas is not what is considered when we take decisions to prosecute. There are a whole lot of other evidence that the state gathers. So perhaps the question was framed incorrectly. But what is important is that, yes, in order for us to successfully prosecute state capture and other high-level corruption cases, we need accused persons, those that are outside of the Republic, to be arrested. We need cooperation from other countries to ensure that these persons are arrested and extradited to South Africa so that they can face trial. So depending now on, the appeal process, there was a question around that, it's not the Minister or South Africa that appeals this process. We can only engage with UAE authorities because that is the nature of extradition proceedings, is that we are completely, so to speak, at the mercy of the state concerned, in this case, the UAE, to ensure that they do all things possible to assist the requesting state, to ensure that the relevant legal processes are followed through with the necessary conviction and support to the requesting country. So that's all we can do. And this applies to any other country. So if there's the Interpol, they can still be arrested in other countries. And so we will engage with colleagues in Interpol. And if they are there's confirmation, and if we can start engaging, perhaps the DP can talk about, any extradition agreements that we may have with some of the other countries that's been mentioned. But of course, it doesn't preclude from trying to pursue to other countries information that they are in those countries. The question on, whether we are winning the fight against corruption and state capture. I think the way one has to really answer the question first is, what does winning the fight against corruption and state capture actually mean? One thing we can say with 100% degree of certainty is that there's no longer immunity in some state capture and corruption. We can say that there have been a number of initiatives that have taken place in the past couple of years in order to build in the National Prosecuting Authority the necessary capacities and capabilities to ensure that we are able to effectively deal with state capture and corruption. There have been several high-profile cases, several arrests, and there have been several very significant asset forfeiture processes that have been put in place. All of this is an indication that we are on the right track to deal with state capture and corruption. We are certainly, I have never been more hopeful that the wheels of justice will begin to turn faster as we proceed. But certainly, the impunity for state capture is no longer a given. We're not where we want to be, but we're far from where we started. And as I said, I feel confident that things will move faster. There were one or two other questions, but maybe I'll just stop there and allow the Minister while I look through my notes quickly and come back with any further contributions. Thank you, DG.
Thank you, NDPP. I'm now doubling up as a program director and answering some questions, maybe before the Minister gives an overall, response to some of the questions. One, there's a question on whether we know whether the Guptas traveled to Switzerland and whether they have applied for asylum status in the DRC or Central African Republic. I must say that we don't have information about that, and we have not been informed by those countries where they are said to be applying for asylum. That's one. Secondly, whether they traveled to Switzerland using South African documents or not. We have seen media reports about that, but we don't have information ourselves. And a question from Adrian about whether we have a diplomatic relationship with Vanuatu. Remember the issue here, diplomatic relationship will not be relevant. You have formal or informal diplomatic relationship, which in the case of Vanuatu, we have a general cordial diplomatic relationship, but the issue will be whether we have treaties on mutual legal assistance and extraditions. And the information we currently have is that we don't have. It's just only today, yesterday, that we learned that insofar as the courts in Dubai are concerned, they treated them as the citizens of Vanuatu. That was the new information for us. The question from MC on whether, after or confidence on whether we will succeed on appeal or not, we will not appeal generally in any court. You appeal on the basis of your own assessment of the facts and the judgment. It's not whether we have a confidence, but this is a different jurisdiction. We have never had to go through this kind of a jurisdiction before, but we have seen reports of other international cases, as I mentioned earlier, where the appeal court reversed the decision of the lower court, like in this case. So we'll avail ourselves to that opportunity. Secondly, you ask whether we'll have any other opportunity should the appeal fail. The next opportunity, if the appeal fails, obviously, will be to reassess whether we can present a new request, but also I think the diplomatic engagement. And I think members of the media will note that this year, the conference of the state parties on the UN Convention Against Corruption will be taking place. That's another avenue at an international level that we can pursue with the possibility of having the conference pass a resolution, mainly impressing on the need for countries like the UAE to cooperate and work with other states to assist in this respect. So I think those are the questions that I thought I needed to cover before the minister can come in. Honorable Minister. Minister, are you still able to hear us?
Thank you. Yeah, I can. Thank you very much, DG. The first one is the question asked by Choli, whether is the treaty worth the paper that it is written on, if this is how we're treated. Hence, you will have heard when I concluded that we intend that the letter of the treaty must be complied with, because we believe our request complied with the extradition treaty and the agreement. Hence, we deployed our central authority and allowed the NPA to travel to the UAE to ensure that the request is in compliance with the extradition treaty. And both authorities and the prosecuting authorities exchanged notes and satisfied themselves that the request that was finally submitted to the central authority in the UAE complies with the treaty. So our expectation is that it must be complied with by the UAE, because we indeed complied with the agreement. So that is what we expect should happen. And it is for that reason that I quoted Article 17, that there is no place to hide, even if the authorities may want to say we did not comply. Article 17 clearly states that if there is a technical issue, it cannot be used as a basis to refuse an extradition request. The requested state must seek clarity. It's obliged in terms of Article 17 of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. Whether we have other avenues or not, we will firstly want to exhaust our engagement with the authorities in the UAE. As the central authority has said, the DG and the NDPP, that it is them who must then, on our behalf, appeal in the courts in the UAE this matter and take it through. So it's only then that we will continue to explore other avenues. But the United Nations Conventions Against Corruption does provide other avenues which we can follow in relation to the matter. And we will pursue all those avenues. So this will never be the end of the matter. We will pursue all the avenues, even at the United Nations multilateral level agreement. As you will be aware, this is a bilateral level treaty that we're dealing with, but the United Nations Conventions Against Corruption as a multilateral treaty still has other avenues that we can look into, whether we believe that we can succeed. As the DG has said, is that there are countries that failed in the UAE, like the Great Britain, also in their attempt to extradite the Guptas, not the same ones as the South African ones, but the UAE also, the United Kingdom also had the same kind of matter as us, and they failed also, and this became an international issue. We are also aware that recently the Danish appealed in the UAE and they succeeded. So it's an avenue that we believe we must pursue and see what will be the outcome. It is only then that we can then look at exploring the other avenues in terms of the UN conventions. And I think the NDPP has answered the question on the red alert. What does it mean in terms of Interpol?
Minister,
the question by Adrian Webb.
I need to clarify that issue.
Hello?
Sorry to interrupt,
okay.
Minister. Clarify the issue of the red notice once you're done.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. The question by Adrian whether we have got any evidence that the Gupta brothers were ever arrested in the UAE. The only evidence we have is the note verbal, which is the formal communication between the two central authorities. After they were arrested, as we mentioned previously, they sent us a note verbal confirming that they were arrested, that they were in prison, and up to now, that is what we were informed, that they were arrested, and that is the only evidence that we have, that they were arrested. And in the diplomatic world, that is the official communication. And as the government of South Africa, we take that as evidence that indeed they were arrested and they were in prison. So that is the only thing we have. We don't have any other evidence. Our evidence is the note verbal that we received. I think the DG dealt with this rumor that they are moving around in Switzerland and in the Central African Republic and other countries. Whether we've received an English version of the note verbal. Yes, we did, but the summary of the judgment was in Arabic. So we had to work overnight. As I said, we received the note verbal last night at around 8. We had to work overnight to interpret the summary of the judgment, which we now provided to you. That's what we had. We had to work the whole night with also you guys from the media inquiring the whole night whether what is happening and all that. So that is the life that we've been living with the authorities in the UAE. When we send our request to the UAE, we gave them a courtesy of an English version and also an Arabic version, which all along has been how we communicate with them. But we received the summary of the judgment in Arabic, which we worked overnight to interpret. And with regard to
Minister, your bandwidth seems, we seem to be losing you. Perhaps you may want.
I'm just checking if there's any other question. Oh, am I better now?
You are
Can
better,
you hear me?
Minister. Yeah, we can hear you. You are better. You can proceed, Minister.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, no, that's fine. Anyway, I'm done. Unless if there's a question I might have missed, I think responded to most of them. Maybe you can go back to the NDPP to deal.
Okay. Colleagues from SABC line in Nasrec, the system has granted you the hosting rights. If you may please assist us to admit Chris back to the meeting.
I'm back, DG. Thanks to the colleagues from Nasrec. Yes.
Okay. All right.
You were doing a sterling job as the spokesperson.
DG is going to take the role.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Chris.
Chris, sorry.
NDPP, you wanted to clarify something as well. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Just very quickly to clarify that the red notice have lapsed once the warrants were issued and executed. And this means that there will have to be an application for new red notices. But we will look at all of the technical details and do whatever is necessary. I also wanted to add one further thing to the issue of winning the fight against corruption. I want to say that the establishment announcement by the president of making the ID permanent, which I'm aware that the Department of Justice is certainly, and the minister, working very hard on ensuring that the necessary legislative amendments are made with extreme speed, is a huge step in the right direction in terms of ensuring that we do win the fight against corruption and state. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. I see we still do have hands from colleagues from Wone News, Suresh Mishra. We still have a hand from Angelo Kopla and Slindile Masego from eNCA and Vickers Berger. May I just have an indication of whether these are legacy hands?
Mine's a legacy hand, Angelo.
Hi, Suresh here from Vion International. Can I ask my question?
You have the floor, Suresh.
Yeah, so, this dismal failure by the South African authorities to actually extradite the Guptas, will this lead to any resignations of the minister or the NDPP? I mean, who will be held accountable? 1 year later, we've been getting news on extradition and corruption, but from what we understand, that this has been a technical failure on technical grounds. So who will be held accountable for this? Thank you.
Thank you. Slindile Masego.
Hi, thank you very much. Slindile Masego from eNCA. Just on the back of Xolum Gambi's comment with regards to South Africans' trust in the justice system, given the fact that we have a fugitive on the run who has not been arrested, can the minister take the country into his confidence and update us with regards to investigations on Thabo Bester? Has Interpol perhaps also been contacted with regards to this? Do we know if he's still in the country? Or has the department been informed that he may be in Tanzania? Is the department also looking into Dr. Nandipha Magudumana as a person of interest? And are her whereabouts known? Have we actually identified the body that was found in Bester's cell? Will the department then be terminating the G4A's contract earlier than 2026? And for the NDPP, I would like to know or understand if the NPA would consider Section 204 of the CPA for Dr. Nandipha and make her a state witness if she's found. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I just say that all of the questions that relate to Thabo Bester will be answered in the parliamentary forum once we are called, but perhaps the minister will just provide some initial responses to some of the questions, but yeah, this would not be the correct briefing. We want to concentrate on this specific issue so that we can clarify all aspects related to this issue. We will continue to take the nation into confidence on the other issues that are in the space, and the Thabo Bester incident may not just be the only one of national interest. So there are a number of issues that we continue to provide updates on. Then may I also then take Christian Duplessis, I see your hand is up, and Vickers Berger. That will round off this second round, and then we will see if the need arises for any other round.
Hi, Crispin. My question would be, does this incident damage diplomatic relations between South Africa and the UAE? And does the minister actually condemn the UAE for, not following this treaty between South Africa and the UAE, because they clearly didn't do their part. I mean, is the South African government going to take a strong stance against the UAE for this, that they didn't follow the rules? Thank you.
Okay, Minister and colleague and the NDPP and DG, over to you just to answer those three questions, and then should the need arise, we will then take the final round of questions.
Sorry, Crispin, can I ask mine or should I wait for the next round?
Okay, sorry, proceed, Mr. Berger. We may have missed you in the round that we were dealing with initially.
Okay. No, all to the Minister and the NDPP. So you are the experts. You probably, definitely studied and dealt with similar cases like this in the past. So what I want to ask you is, what are the chances of the Guptas ever being brought to justice for their role in the in state capture? That's my question. Thanks.
Once again, Crispin, do I have the floor?
You're not noted, Mr. Ngambi, sorry. DG and Advocate Batoy, and then the Minister, and then we'll take a final round. Mr. Ngambi, you'll be the first one in the final round.
Now, Chris, what I wanted to say was that I was kicked out when Slindelo was asking a question, so I'm not sure whether there was a direct question that would require me to answer there. But
no, there isn't, DG, not from, it's matters that relate to correctional services.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Chris. Just maybe on the general questions that the Minister and the NDPP will deal with. The first one relates to accountability. I don't think it would be fair to say someone must take responsibility if a court in a foreign jurisdiction takes a decision on the basis of technicality. Maybe just to explain there that the technicality doesn't mean that the South African authorities did not carry out the treaty responsibilities and obligations to the letter of the law. We have done everything with the prosecutors in UAE who confirmed that everything in the documents that were submitted were in order. So in other words, it shouldn't be interpreted to mean incompetency on the part of the South African authorities. That's one. But secondly, generally, in the practice of extradition, it becomes complicated because you are dealing with a foreign jurisdiction. And in this case as well, as opposed to maybe when we deal with common law jurisdictions where we more or less, in terms of the law and the legal procedures, we follow the same procedures. This is a complete different legal system and unfamiliar to us. It's not a common law system. It's a complete different system. So if a court and their judges make a decision, it should not and it must never be understood to be a reflection on the South African authorities. I thought we needed to just clarify that point. And then there was a question about whether we have made a protestation, or maybe before that, whether this damages the diplomatic relationship between UAE and South Africa. Just to mention that in the extradition process, you have a political diplomatic process as well as a judicial process. Now, starting with the first one, the authorities will have done their part by receiving the request, validating it, and giving it to their prosecutors to take it to court. So in other words, on the part of the state, they will have done their part. Now, the second stage, which is the judicial process, that's when then the courts in that foreign jurisdiction take a decision. Now, because it's not the end of the road, there's an appeal opportunity, it will be too early to pass a judgment and say that this has affected the relationship. Safe to say that if you were to ask, were we given all the necessary cooperation? I think we got here because we had to, the past 10 days, make inquiries after inquiries. So it was not always a smooth or an easy process, but it will be unfair to pass a judgment at this stage. And I think that would be a subject of a diplomatic engagement between the two countries. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, DG. NDPP, is there anything you'd like to clarify in the questions raised?
Sorry, thank you, Chris. I'll just add quickly to what the DG has just said. I think it's very important that our media colleagues understand the legalities and the processes of extradition before comments like dismal failure are made. I would have thought that the statement, as well as what the those of us on this panel have mentioned today, would have been absolutely clear about the fact that South Africa ticked all the boxes and did everything that was required to ensure that our extradition had the best possible opportunities for successful application. There was nothing more that the South African authorities could have done. That's the first thing. And I think it's very important for colleagues to understand these processes and the way they work. The second issue on this is that, you know, what are the chances of the Guptas ever being brought? You know, it's a question of, you know, how long is a piece of string, really? We don't know. It depends on a whole lot. Extradition is a complicated process. And when there are persons that are trying to make sure that they do not ever face justice, rest assured, corruption fights back. And they're going to fight back with every possible means and opportunities to ensure that they are never brought back to stand trial in South Africa, because they understand what the consequences will be. So all I can say is that, you know, depending on the countries that you're dealing with, some processes are, as the DG explains, could be less complicated than others. So at the end of the day, we have to ensure that as a country, irrespective of where they are, we do everything possible to ensure that they are brought back to face justice in South Africa. It is what the people of this country expect and want. It is what we, as those in the criminal justice system, want and expect. So we will leave no stone unturned in this process. On the issue of Section 204 witnesses in any cases, the NPA looks at evidence and prosecutors decide at the end of the day on whether witnesses should be used as Section 204 witnesses and others, taking into account the entire case, all of the evidence. I can't comment further on that. Thank you.
Minister Lamola.
Yeah, no, thank you, Crispin. The first question, Siraj, that there is a dismal failure by myself and the Central Authority and the NPA on this matter, and whether we will take responsibility, is that maybe the dismal failure is on his part to understand the process, as we have explained earlier on, because we have been explaining it and I've repeated many times. Firstly is that even if, as he assumed, we have failed, when we send a request, or when South Africa receives an extradition request, for an example, here in South Africa, the Central Authority in the Department of Justice check whether the request is compliant or not. And if it is not compliant, the Central Authority will engage the Central Authority of the requesting party of any other country and tell them that, look, your request does not comply on the following reasons. Please submit the following documents and whatever that may be necessary. It is only then that they will bring it to me to approve that it must now be taken to the NPA. And the NPA will then also check the document, satisfy themselves. And if they are satisfied that the document complies, they will then take the document to court, to the magistrate where they are going to apply, for example. And we do that every day. Like on a day-to-day, it's our daily job. I can say it's our bread and butter. So the NPA will, if they are not satisfied with the document, they will still say to the Central Authority, no, this document does not comply with whatever. If it's the law, they will say it's not compliant with the law. This must be corrected. Speak to the Central Authority that side, let them clarify it follows diplomatic channel. If the document complies, the NPA in South Africa will then take the document to court, where the magistrate will then say, this person is extraditable or is not extraditable. We have never had an experience of taking a document to court and it is dismissed on technicality. It is dismissed, it is extraditable or not on the basis of legal factual argument. So when we take a document also to the UAE, and that's why I was explaining that we then checked from our side, does it comply, does it not comply, everything. Then when we were satisfied, our authorities in South Africa flew to the UAE to engage with the UAE authorities. After many deliberations and checking of documents, telling them this does not comply, correct this and so forth. I remember there was even an issue of an Arabic version that we had to fly from South Africa to the UAE. Again, compliance. They said it is now, everything now complies. You have now submitted everything. This document complies. We are now taking it through our court process. We are confident that you have complied with everything. And when we have complied with everything, it is therefore now the prosecuting authority in the UAE that takes the process on our behalf in their courts there. Because we have complied, we have submitted everything, then they take the document through. And that is why we are convinced that we have submitted everything that complies with this, because we were told by the authorities in the UAE, we were also told by the authorities in terms of the NPA that with their counterparts, they have satisfied each other that this document indeed does comply. Therefore, they are taking it through. That's why from time to time, when you will ask us, you guys from the media, we will say, we have complied, we have submitted, we are awaiting a court outcome. So, Sarash's view is without basis. In fact, it's nonsensical. But we will allow that we continue to engage Crispin, and we can engage with the further questions, is there any?
Thank you very much, Minister. And I just want to emphasize that as well, that this is the last round. We are trying by all means possible to ensure that we clarify any misconceptions or misheld views around this process. So this is the final round, colleagues. And I will now proceed to take hands from Newsroom Africa, MC Ferreira, John Eklund from New York Times. And then just before we get to those questions, I would like to read out questions that I have received from colleagues on the WhatsApp platform. This is, and also on the Zoom platform. And I'll start with a question from the Daily Maverick, Jessica Besaidenote. And she says, did South Africa receive all the outstanding banks records from the United Arab Emirates? And then there's a question from Ms. Sophie Mokoena of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. And the question is threefold. Is the minister going to go to Dubai to engage his counterpart? Has the South African embassy failed in its duty to monitor the process in Dubai? And then she wants us to then ask this or engage in this point. Apparently, they are using a South African passport. Is the government doing anything about this? So those are the questions that have been provided to us on the online platforms. May I then open the floor to the colleagues who have raised their hand? Mr. Ngambi, you lead the charge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Crispin. Two questions, one for Advocate Batoy and the other for the minister. Let me start with you, Advocate Batoy. The Guptas, my understanding is that they were wanted in part in relation to the Mulane investments case that is being heard in Bloemfontein. Now, in that case, the accused have applied for a Section 174 discharge. Now, what hope is there that they will not get this? And if they do, it means that that case is going to fall apart. Do you hope for an appeal in that regard? Then, Minister, you've explained in quite a lengthy detail that this extradition process is dependent in part on diplomacy. So here's my question. We blatantly refused to arrest Omar al-Bashir, the former Sudanese president, when he was in this country in 2015, therefore thumping our noses on international law. On the Russian situation, we've taken a position that we are non-aligned, which means that, again, in part, we are not cooperating with the international law as you would have. So what hope is there? Or why should other countries cooperate with us this time?
Sorry, colleagues, just before we proceed, may I please ask that we treat this forum with the appropriate dignity and professionalism? If you're not on the platform, please mute so that people can be given the opportunity to ask their questions without unnecessary interruptions. Thank you. I think Ms. Ferreira, you are next.
Thank you, Chris. If I could ask Minister Lamola, I'm still trying to understand what the implication would be for an appeal process if, in fact, the Guptas may no longer be in the UAE. What happens then? Because there was a delay of 6 to 7 weeks. You weren't aware, you weren't able to follow the hearing. And so you weren't able to lodge an appeal immediately afterwards. So could that delay of 6 or 7 weeks be dispositive for our case as far as the UAE is concerned?
Thank you, Mr. John.
Yes, thank you. Just 3 questions, more so just for clarity to make sure I understood the points that were made. But I think you said, so this extradition hearing was held without informing South Africa. I just want to make sure that I understood that correct. So there was no representative from South Africa in the hearing. I just want to make sure that that is correct. And I think it was mentioned, is it up to the prosecutors of the UAE to carry out the appeal? So if there is appeal, who would be carrying that out? Would it be the prosecutors in the Ministry of Justice or the prosecuting authority in the UAE who would have to do that? And then finally, just to be clear, you all have, like, at this point, you all have no clue where the Guptas are. Is that correct? You don't know if they're still in custody. You don't know if they're in Switzerland or if they're anywhere else. I just wanted to make sure those points were correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the questions, colleagues. I'll then hand over again, Director General, NDPP, and then the Minister in that order. Thank you, colleagues.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. Maybe starting with the last part that was just asked now. By law, if, in terms of this judgment, it will mean that then they are not in custody because then the request has not been granted. So that automatically means that by operation of the law, they are not in custody. That's the first part. So now, secondly, wherever they will be, depending on the whether we have a treaty with that country or not, for argument's sake, let's assume they are in Vanuatu, and we don't have any extradition treaty or mutual legal assistance treaty with Vanuatu. There's nothing stopping us from engaging in a process to work on a treaty with any country where they may be found to be and initiate a process in that particular country. So that's how international law and the law on extradition operate. So wherever they will be, there's nothing stopping us from starting a process and making a request. The question on whether who will then prosecute the appeal, in terms of the process, as Minister was explaining in greater details, that's the UAE authorities that will be at our request. We will have to express an interest that we would want to appeal, would want them to assist us, because in terms of the law, if it was here in South Africa, it will also be the NPA that was going to prosecute the appeal on behalf of the requesting state. So that's what will have to happen. And Chris, just the last part that I thought was technical that we could deal with. But otherwise, I think I'm fine with those. Then the minister and the NDPP can cover the others.
Thank you, DG. NDPP, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chris. On the question of the Nulane matter, look, this matter is sub judice. And as the prosecuting authority, we do not speak about cases that are in court. We have to respect the court processes, which we are doing. We will await the outcome of the decision of the judge and then decide on what further steps the NPA would take, which would obviously be also the possibility of an appeal, but we first need to consider the judgment. If the 174 discharge is granted, then of course we will need to look at all the options that we can potentially proceed on and decide what is the best way forward. And so the issue relating to, I should say that the delay in 6-7 weeks is, of us being even informed is very concerning. And I'm not sure whether it will be dispositive of the appeal processes, because we need to understand the technicalities of timelines, etc., in the UAE. But it is very concerning that it took this long for us to be formally informed of this decision, and only after the South African authorities actually having informally been receiving information around this, the fact that these proceedings may have been concluded and the application refused, we made formal requests, which resulted in the information coming through to us. So it is concerning, and at this point, I can't say what impact this could potentially have on the legal process going forward in the UAE. There are prosecutors, and there's an international cooperation section in the UAE that deals with this matter. The international cooperation section is, the colleagues that we've been dealing with are based in Abu Dhabi, and the prosecutors in this matter are based in Dubai. And we've been cooperating with both these authorities. At the end of the day, I am not sure myself which authority actually decides at the end of the day in terms of the process moving forward, but we are engaging with both authorities. Thank you, Chris.
NDPP, there was a question about whether we had received full compliance in relation to the bank statements that we had requested from the UAE. DG, then you may come back, please, after the NDPP.
I'm trying to get confirmation about that. I know there was a lot of to and fro about the evidence that we were seeking from the UAE, and there were certain challenges with it, but I just want to get clarity on where we stand with that before I comment any further.
DG, you have the floor.
Yes, I thought maybe before Minister deals with it, the other question relating to ICC, al-Bashir and Russia, that I provide some technical details. I think for the benefit of South Africans, we shouldn't convolute the issue of the Rome Statute with the issue of request for extradition. Those are two different matters. In terms of international criminal law, which its bedrock is the Rome Statute, that deals with war crimes, crimes against humanity, and gross violation of human rights, and which is a different matter in this case. And so it can never be said that because South Africa will have failed to execute a request for arrest of al-Bashir, therefore this is what we're getting in return. This is governed by a bilateral treaty between the two countries, which creates obligations that are not conditional on either of the two state parties complying with other international obligations. That's one. And secondly, also governed by the international law, which is the UN Convention Against Corruption, which the two countries, UAE and South Africa, are state parties. And that treaty doesn't have a condition that either of the parties is excused from executing its obligation on the basis of either one of the party not having complied with another part of the law, which in this case will be international criminal law, which is not the same in this case. So I think it's very important so that South Africans should not get a sense that South Africa is being punished one way or the other for what is perceived to have been a non-cooperation with a request for, arrest of whoever was considered to be an international fugitive. I think the same applies to the situation of Russia. I think there has not been any decision or final or concluded position of South Africa on the current situation in Ukraine and Russia in relation to the International Criminal Court. So it will be very important that we separate these two matters and not convolute with a view to create confusions to South Africans. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, DG. I think just before you go, I wanted to just check if you, there are questions that may relate to you from Ms. Sophie Mokoena from the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Perhaps the question of whether the South African Embassy has failed in its duty to monitor the process in Dubai. Can you take that question, please, DG?
I don't think it would be fair really to say they have failed, because as of last week, even by Wednesday, the South African Embassy was doing everything possible to make a follow-up with the Dubai authorities to want to know what is the status of the matter. It does appear clearly they proceeded with the court case without informing us through the diplomatic channels, which will have been through our embassy. So the embassy had no information. And also just, I think, to bear in mind for us that I know our court systems here are open, but we cannot vouch and confirm how the UAE judicial process works. So the information we have, the South African embassy in Abu Dhabi didn't have any information, and it was not on the fault of their own that maybe they were not doing their part, but because if they are not informed, diplomatic practice requires that they will be informed and be informed that tomorrow there's a court case, you are free to come and attend, but they were never informed. So it will be unfair to pass such a harsh judgment that they failed on their part. From our part, whatever we requested them to do, including requesting meetings, they carried out such requests. And safe to also just to mention that we are not sure what would have happened had we not in the past 10 days been pressurizing the UAE to give us a status update on the matter. The final information that we got last night was as a result of us through the embassy putting pressure on the authorities in UAE to provide us an update. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, DG. Safe travels, and I hope you put your seatbelt on. Minister, you have the floor.
Yeah, no, thank you, Crispin. Whether I will be traveling to the UAE or not, I think, as we said earlier on, we will continue to engage with the UAE authorities through the channels we have always been using. And if necessary, there will indeed be travel for the DG or anyone from the NPA or myself, if there is a need, which we have approved even in the past, which happened. From the statement, you will see there's been a lot of back and forth in the UAE. So it will depend on the engagements that we're going to have with them, whether there's a need for us to travel there or not. The issue of the embassy, I think the DG has answered it. And I must add that Ambassador Kachalia, who is our representative there in the UAE, has been excellent. Even the guys in Dubai, as and when there's been any query or any information, they have acted very excellently. So from the onset of this process, we worked with them, guided by them, and we're also guided by DERCO in all the processes that we have undertaken. And even DERCO has been excellent and superb. So there has never been any diplomatic failure from our part. They followed up every time we inquired. They followed up. Even here with the ambassador of the UAE to South Africa, we have also inquired with him. And from time to time, he will also follow up and so forth. And it is for that reason that yesterday, I also engaged with him, followed up also again, and he then told me that he is in position of a note verbal, which we had to go and collect at this place at night at 8 o'clock, at 8 p.m. So all efforts have been put. And I don't know, the DG maybe he's being politically correct. He does not want to blow his own trumpet. The DG, who is the central authority of the Department of Justice, is a senior diplomat. He is a former deputy ambassador of South Africa to the United Nations. He has been to many diplomatic missions on behalf of DERCO. So he's a senior diplomat understanding the space of international relations at the high level. So all diplomatic efforts were put. And I can also confirm that even the Minister of International Relations, as and when it was necessary for her to intervene on our behalf, she has also been very helpful. Even the President, from time to time, where there was a need for him to intervene and help us, he has also been very helpful. And it is also for that reason that he is also aware of this outcome. I also informed him, and when we had frustrations, we also informed him. So we followed all the necessary diplomatic processes and engagements, and we tried at our all-level best to maintain the diplomatic decorum. So we have done everything under the diplomatic channels. And we will continue in that regard. And that's why we said that this process, as we move forward, including the appeals and all that, we will be doing it with one also aim to further enhance and maintain the diplomatic integrity of the two countries, including bilateral relations, because when there is a treaty, all the two parties who are participants or signatories to the treaty have a duty to honor it. And we are expecting that should be the case also in this instance. And with regards to the cooperation, the UAE, I think the DG answered that part, but the main document maybe told is that for us, between us and the UAE is this extradition treaty that we have that must be honored. And also the reality that we, on a day-to-day basis, as I've said, I mean, you have mentioned just one or two matters that we deal with. Every day, we deal with mutual legal assistance, with extradition requests, which we sign, cooperate with many countries across the globe. So South Africa has a reputation of complying with its extradition obligations with our counterparts. Then I think the issues of the effect of the appeal process and what is the effect of the judgment, I think the DG has outlined that. Yeah, I think all the questions have been answered, Crispin, unless I've missed any other one. And we want to thank members of the media for availing themselves at this short notice. I know that we are also eating out of their holidays. But we thought this is necessary and important for us to take the nation into confidence. And I also want to thank the DG and the NDPP who have worked at short notice and quickly to put together this information. With regards to the one of Tababesta, I think Crispin has outlined. We are going to go back to the portfolio committee and we will further give any further update that is necessary. except to confirm that indeed there is work by the South African police and also by correctional services to recapture him, and all the people of interest are being looked at, and at the right time, I believe the police will be able to give an update in that regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, and I just want to echo your thanks as well to our colleagues in the media and wish everyone who celebrates the Passover and Easter period a happy Easter. Thank you, colleagues. This concludes our press briefing.